Hi, this is Ramya Ravindran and welcome back to my channel Infinity for UPSC. So today we are going to cover this topic called Parliament. We are going to look at the introduction of Parliament and deal with some aspects of Parliament. The Parliament is the legislative organ of the Union government. We know that there are three different organs. One is executive organ, second legislative organ, and third judiciary. Legislative organ means the organ which is involved in the process of law making. Now, who all are involved in the process of law making? All the members of the parliament. That is, each and every member of the Lok Sabha and each and every member of the Rajya Sabha. So, all of them are members of this legislative organ. Then second is executive organ. Now, the members of executive organ, they are part of legislative organ as well. They are basically the ministers. The elected ministers are called the executive organ. So, they are part of legislative and they are part of executive organ and they execute the laws which are made by the legislative organ. Then third is the judiciary. Judiciary, we know that we have got an integrated judiciary system right from the Supreme Court to the lower courts. So, this integrated system of court is called the judicial organ, the third organ of the union government. So, I hope the different organs are clear. We have got three organs: legislative, executive and judiciary. And parliament is the legislative organ of the union government because we have got another set of legislative organ at the state level. Each and every state have got their own legislative organ and their own executive organ. And judiciary, I have already told you that it is an integrated organ. There is no separation or there is no disintegration between the union level or the state level. But when it comes to legislative and executive, we have separate legislative organ for the union level and separate for the state level. That is, each and every state have got their own legislative and their own executive organ. Parliament occupies a central position in the Indian democratic political system due to adoption of the parliamentary form of government. Now, there are two forms of government. One is the presidential form of government, another is parliamentary form of government. In the parliamentary form of government, president does not occupy the central position. Whereas in the presidential form of government, president is the whole and soul of the government. And we chose not to go for the presidential form of government. Instead, we wanted to go for the parliamentary form of government. Because for us, it was more important, it was more necessary to have a responsible government than an independent government. Because in parliamentary form of government, the elected ministers are answerable to the legislative organ. So that makes it a responsible organ as well. Whereas in the presidential form of government, he is independent. So more than independence, being responsible was more necessary for our country. That is the reason we chose parliamentary form of government. Now this form of government, it has got one more name, that is Westminster model of government. So parliamentary form of government, also known as Westminster model of government. Remember this name, very important. Then this topic, that is parliament, it is dealt in the part 5 of Indian Constitution. We know that Indian Constitution is divided into several parts, several schedules, and there are many articles. And most of these parts, schedules and articles will be covered as and when we proceed with each and every topic of the polity. So as of now, what is it that we have got? Parliament is covered in the part 5 of Indian Constitution. Very important, Parliament part 5. Organization of Parliament. Under the Constitution, the Parliament of India consists of three parts: the President, the Council of States, House of People. Now, important thing is that you need to understand that these terms were the original terms. And it was in 1954 that these Hindi names were adopted. That is, the Council of States became Rajya Sabha, House of People became Lok Sabha. So, remember the date, it was 1954, and remember this fact that Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha were not the original terms. The original terms when the constitution was framed was the Council of State and the House of People. Now these two names, that is Council of States and House of People, these two have got three more sets of names. Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha we have already seen. Now there are three more names. First is Rajya Sabha is also called Upper House. So first name is upper house. Second, it is also called the second chamber. Then third name is House of Elders. Now do not get confused that the upper house is called second chamber, because if you look at upper house, ideally this should be called as first chamber. But upper house is called second chamber. So do not get confused. I will read all the names together. Council of States, also called Rajya Sabha, upper house, second chamber and House of Elders. Then Lok Sabha, which is also called the House of People, has got some more names. They are lower house, first chamber and popular house. And here also do not get confused. Lower house, it is not called second chamber. Instead, it is called first chamber. So these two set of names, do not get confused. Once more, House of People, Lok Sabha, lower house, first chamber, popular house. So these were the names of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. Now the former means the first one, that is the Council of States. It represents the states and union territories of Indian Union, while the latter means the second one, the Lok Sabha. It represents the people of India as a whole. Now why is it that we call it that way? It is because the people of India elect the members of Lok Sabha. Whereas the members of Rajya Sabha, they are not directly elected by the people of India, they are indirectly elected. That is, we elect some people and they in turn elect the members of Rajya Sabha. So first, they are indirectly elected. That is one reason. Second reason is that we have got dedicated number of seats assigned to each and every state and to each and every union territory. That is, each and every state will have a certain designated number of people who will be part of Rajya Sabha. So, this is the second reason. First, they are not directly elected. Second, they have come because they have been given the seat assigned to a particular state. Though the President of India is not a member of either house of the parliament and does not sit in the parliament to attend its meeting, he is an integral part of the parliament. Now, I hope that none of you all have missed this part. When we were discussing the Council of States and House of People, you might have also noted that President is also a part of the Parliament of India. So, our Parliament of India has got three entities. One is the President, second, the Council of States, and third, the House of People. So, President is also a member of Parliament of India. Now, why do we consider President of India as member of Parliament? We can ask this question because he is neither the member of Lok Sabha nor the member of Rajya Sabha. But still, he is the part of Indian Parliament. Why is it so? Because there are certain functions and certain proceedings in which he is an integral part and which he deals with. So that is the reason we cannot avoid President from being a part of Parliament. So the first and most important function that he performs, because of which we have to consider him a part of Parliament, is first of all, he signs the bill. It is only because of the President's assent a bill becomes a law. Now what is a bill and what is a law? Bill is a proposal statement. That is, it might have originated in one of the two houses, either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. One of the member from any of the house. So, suppose member A from Lok Sabha wanted to pass a bill. He has some idea and he wants to make it a law. So, he proposes that bill. And he discusses that idea with other members of that house. And when he gets considerable support from that house, this bill is passed to other house, that is the Rajya Sabha. And when it is passed from Rajya Sabha, it has to go to President. And when President agrees with that proposal, he will sign it and only then this bill will become a law. So that is the reason he is considered as an integral part of Parliament. One is, a bill becomes a law only with the assent of the President. Second, he performs certain functions relating to the proceedings of Parliament. Now what are these proceedings? He summons both the houses. What is the meaning of summon? That is, he can order both the houses, the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, to have a meeting. So that is the meaning of summoning a house. Second, prorogue both the houses. What is the meaning of prorogue? That means end a session. Now, what is a session? Before understanding what is a session, I think you should understand what is a sitting. Sitting means the ongoing meeting. The meeting which is ongoing right now, that is called a sitting. So if you terminate or if you end that meeting, you are ending the sitting. And we have such series of sittings, that is, you will have meetings for days altogether extending up to few months. So that entire series of meetings which are extending up to few months, that is called one session. Example, you have a winter session, budget session, these are sessions. So prorogue means terminating the session. So that is the difference between prorogue and summon. Summon means ordering them to meet. Prorogue means terminating the entire session. So now you will have the next meeting after a few months, not the next day. So that is the meaning of prorogue. Dissolve the Lok Sabha. Now here we have seen that he can summon both the houses. He can prorogue both the houses. But when it comes to dissolving, he cannot dissolve the Rajya Sabha. He can only dissolve the Lok Sabha. Why is it so? Because Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. It cannot be dissolved. So unlike Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. We know that we have got elections for Lok Sabha every 5 years and the entire Lok Sabha is changed. That is, every single person belonging to this Lok Sabha will not be part of the next Lok Sabha unless he is elected once again. So the entire house is dissolved. Now you might think that Rajya Sabha is also elected indirectly. So the entire house should be changed. That means they should also be reshuffled. The new elected minister will form the new members of the house. But that is not the case. The entire members of Rajya Sabha are not elected all at once. Only a portion of the Rajya Sabha members are changed every now and then. So the entire Rajya Sabha is not changed altogether. That is the reason we call that Rajya Sabha is a permanent house, but Lok Sabha is not a permanent house. And that is the reason you can dissolve Lok Sabha but not Rajya Sabha. Next, addresses both the house. That is, he can give a speech to both the house. Issues ordinance. Now what is an ordinance? Ordinance is just like a law. The only difference between a law and ordinance is that ordinance is temporary. It is not permanent like law. So he can issue ordinance, but there are special circumstances under which he can issue ordinance. All that we will be studying later. As of now, just understand that ordinance means he can issue new laws, but that is temporary in nature. And who does this? President. So he can summon both the house, prorogue both the house, dissolve Lok Sabha, address both the house and issue ordinance. Now note that it is not just the president who can issue ordinance. A governor can also issue an ordinance. Who is a governor? Governor plays the same role which is played by president at the union level. So governor plays that role at the state level. And at the state level, a governor can issue ordinance. So here we saw why president is part of the parliamentary system in India. Now in this respect, the framers of Indian Constitution relied on the British pattern rather than American pattern. So what does this line say? It says that we follow the parliamentary form of government by relying on the British pattern. So that means Britishers, they also follow the parliamentary form of government and they also have the crown. That is, the crown is also part of the parliament, like we have the president being a part of parliament. And we are not following the American pattern because America follows the presidential form of government and not the parliamentary form of government. So in Britain, we have got the crown, it could be the king or the queen, and they have House of Lords, which is their upper house, and House of Commons. By contrast, the American president is not an integral part of the legislature. In USA, the legislature, which is known as Congress, consists of Senate, that is the upper house, and the House of Representatives, that is the lower house. So while we call it Parliament, they call it Congress. And Rajya Sabha is called Senate, Lok Sabha is called House of Representatives. So this is how the Indian and Britain government is different from the American government. Then we have already discussed why did we choose the parliamentary form of government instead of the presidential form. What are the reasons? One, the executive organ is part of legislative organ. Second, a bill cannot be passed without the support of the other members of legislative organ. Third, the members of executive organ, they are answerable to the legislature. So whenever there is a meeting, whenever there is a session, these members, they can ask questions to the ministers and the ministers are liable to give a reply to the legislature. So these are the reasons why we chose the parliamentary form of government. And in the presidential form of government, they lay stress on separation of legislative and executive organ. Hence, the American president is not regarded as a part of Congress. So you need to remember these things because they will ask questions which aspect of constitution has been taken from which other country. So in this aspect, we follow the British model and not the American model. Composition of Rajya Sabha. So till now we have discussed about the president. Now we will discuss about the composition of Rajya Sabha and the composition of Lok Sabha. So first is Rajya Sabha. The maximum strength of Rajya Sabha is fixed at 250. The maximum limit is 250. That means it can be less than 250. Out of 250, 238 are to be the representatives of states and union territories and they are elected indirectly. I have already told you that the members of Rajya Sabha are elected indirectly and some other members are nominated. But what is not there here? Direct nomination is not there in Rajya Sabha. They are either elected indirectly or they are nominated. And 12 are nominated by the president. So 238 indirectly elected, 12 nominated by the president. At present, Rajya Sabha has got 245 members and out of these, 225 represent the states, 8 union territories and 12 nominated by the president. So this entire 12, it has been used up, but instead of 238 seats, only 233 seats are used up. So 225 from state plus 8, 233. Now if you want to remember this number, you can remember that 8 members represent 8 union territories. Now it is not true that one union territory will have one representative. That is not the case. Only few union territories have representatives in Rajya Sabha and others do not have any representative. What is the reason? Population is the reason. Only if there is a considerable amount of population, they are given representation in Rajya Sabha, else they are not given representation in Rajya Sabha. Now personally, I feel that it is high time to discard this consideration which is based on population, because population explosion is already a very serious problem. And if we are giving seats on the basis of population, that is, if your state has got considerable population, you will get a seat, else you will not get a seat. And more the number of population in your state, more seats would be assigned to you. This is not a good thing because now they do not have any incentive to reduce the population or to control the population. So this is a very serious problem and this consideration needs to be discarded as soon as possible. Now since we have already discussed about union territories, we will just have a look at the union territories. So we have got 8 union territories. Earlier we had only 7 union territories. Now we have got 2 more union territories. One is Ladakh, second Jammu and Kashmir. So now Jammu Kashmir is not a state. Instead, it is a union territory and it has been divided into 2, Ladakh and Jammu Kashmir. And Dadar and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu. These two were 2 separate union territories, but these has been merged and formed into 1 union territory. So this is how we have got 8 union territories at present. I will just read out all the union territories. Andaman and Nicobar Island, Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu, Chandigarh, Lakshadweep, Puducherry, Delhi, Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir. Now going back to the composition of Rajya Sabha, the 4th schedule of constitution deals with the allocation of seats in Rajya Sabha to the states and union territories. I have told you that the number of seats are not fixed. It depends on the population of the particular state and the particular union territory. So that allocation is mentioned in 4th schedule of constitution. What did we see earlier? We had seen that Part 5 of Constitution deals with Parliament. So that was Part 5. Now we are seeing that 4th schedule deals with allocation of seats in Rajya Sabha to the states and union territory. So these two things you need to remember. 4th schedule, Rajya Sabha seats. 5th part, Parliament. Representation of states. We know that the members of Rajya Sabha come from states, they come from union territories, and they also come by way of nomination. So now we will see how do they come from states. The representative of states in Rajya Sabha are elected by the elected members of State Legislative Assembly. So State Legislative Assembly, in this, the way we have Lok Sabha in Parliament, that is at the union level, we have Legislative Assembly. So it is the counterpart of the Lok Sabha in the Rajya Sabha, which is at the union level, is called Legislative Council at the level of state. So Lok Sabha is equal to Legislative Assembly, and the counterpart of Rajya Sabha is Legislative Council. So the members of Rajya Sabha are elected by the elected members of State Legislative Assembly. So the Legislative Council, they do not have any role in the election of the Rajya Sabha members. That is one thing. Second, at the State Legislative Assembly, we have elected members as well as nominated members. But the nominated members do not have any role in the election of Rajya Sabha members. So that means only elected members of State Legislative Assemblies elect the Rajya Sabha members. Note it very carefully. It has been asked several times. Very important statement. Representation of states. We know that in Rajya Sabha we have got members from states, we have got members from union territories, and both these members are indirectly elected. Then we have got nominated members, and who is nominating? President. So all these representation we are going to see. The representatives of states in the Rajya Sabha are elected by the elected members of State Legislative Assembly. Now see, at the union level we have Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Similarly, at the state level we have got Legislative Assembly and Legislative Council. And the Legislative Assembly at the state level is equal to the Lok Sabha of union government. I mean to say that they play the same role. And the Legislative Council is similar to the Rajya Sabha. And here we saw that only Legislative Assembly have got role in the election of Rajya Sabha, and that too the elected members. So at the Lok Sabha we have got elected members and nominated members, and none of them have got any role in the election of Rajya Sabha members. Then we have got Legislative Assembly. Here we have got elected members and nominated members similar to that of Lok Sabha, and here the elected members have got role in the election of Rajya Sabha. So Legislative Assembly plays a role in the election of Rajya Sabha, and that too only the elected members. And again Legislative Council has got no role in the election of members of Rajya Sabha. So no role of Lok Sabha, no role of Legislative Assembly. Only the elected members of Legislative Assembly will elect the members of Rajya Sabha. Then the election is held in accordance with the system of proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. We will see what this means. Then we have got one more way of election, and that is first past the post system. But it is not followed in the case of election of Rajya Sabha. This is followed in the case of Lok Sabha and in the case of Legislative Assembly. So first past the post system in the case of Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly. Here we are following proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. And Legislative Council we will not discuss now, because every state has not got Legislative Council. Only few states have got Legislative Council. Now what is this first past the post system? We know that if there is a running race, there is a starting point and there is a finishing point. And at the finishing point you will have a post. You will have to touch that post and cross that post. So whoever is the person who passes the post first, he is the winner. that same technique is used in this mode of election. Whoever passes the post, he is elected. And we are not looking into any other criteria. The only criteria is the first person who passes the post, he is elected. This is followed in Lok Sabha elections and in Legislative Assembly elections. In Rajya Sabha, we are following the proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. Now let us look what is this proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. Now imagine that there are 10 voters and 4 candidates for the seat of Rajya Sabha. Now every voter, he can give 4 ranks because there are 4 seats, or you can say preference. So his first preference is candidate A, second is candidate B, third is candidate C. Likewise, every single voter will give his all 4 preference to these 4 candidates. Then after that, we will count the number of votes received by each and every candidate. So if you look at candidate A, he has got 1, 2, 3 and 4. So 4 votes. So 4 people are saying that he is their first preference. That means he got 4, that is 40%. 4 people out of 10 voting means 40%. And one more thing, you are not going to count the other preferences, that is second, third and fourth are not going to be counted. Only the first preference will be counted. And what is the purpose of second, third and fourth preference? I will explain later. Then second, candidate B, he got 3 votes, he got 30%, 2 votes 20%, 1 vote 10%. So we have counted everything. Now there is a rule here, unlike the first past the post system, here the candidate needs to cross a mark of 50%. Unless he gets more than 50%, he will not be elected even if he is ahead of other candidates. So here candidate A is not selected. In fact, none of them are selected. Now what are we going to do? We will have a second round of election and we will remove the candidate who has got the least number of votes. In this case, it is candidate D. So we are going to discard him from this election. We are going to remove him. And whoever has voted for candidate D, in this case, the voter number 2, he has voted for candidate D. So now his second preference will become his first preference. Third will become second preference. Fourth will become third preference. And now we are going to count once again. So whose vote has increased? Candidate A has got the first preference now. So now he has got 5 votes, that makes it 50%. But again he is not qualifying because he has to cross this mark. He should get at least 51%. Now the next candidate with the least number of votes is candidate C. So we are going to remove him from this election, and whoever has voted for candidate C, their first preference would be removed. This would be discarded and this would be discarded, and their second preference would become their first preference. And we will count once again and we will see which of the candidate passes this mark of 50%. And only that candidate will be elected, only he will get the seat. So this is the meaning of proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. I hope you might have understood both these concepts properly, both the modes of elections. The seats are allotted to the states in the Rajya Sabha on the basis of population. We have already seen this and we have already discussed why this should be discarded. Hence, the number of representatives varies from states to states. Example, UP has 31 members while Tripura has only 1 member. However, in USA, all states are given equal representation in the Senate, irrespective of their population. And since USA has 50 states and 100 members for the Senate, they will distribute all these 100 seats among the 50 states equally. So, each state will get 2 seats. Representation of Union Territories. The representatives of each Union Territory in the Rajya Sabha are indirectly elected by members of an electoral college specifically constituted for the purpose. We had seen that the seats of states in Rajya Sabha, they are also indirectly elected, but they are elected by the elected members of Legislative Assembly. But here we have a specific electoral college, that is, we will have a group of people and they will decide the representatives of each union territory in the Rajya Sabha. This election is also held in accordance with the system of proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. Out of the 8 union territories, now we had already seen which are these 8 union territories, and out of these 8, only 3 have got representation in Rajya Sabha. Which 3? Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir. And the remaining 5 union territories, the population is very small and hence they do not have any representation in the Rajya Sabha. We have already seen that population is the basis on which the seats are designated. So here, since the population is very small, they do not have any seat at all. Only 3 have got, and you need to remember all these 3. Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir. Next, nominated members. We have seen that in Rajya Sabha, we have got members from states, members from union territories and some members are nominated. So who are nominated? 12 members are nominated, and those are the people who have got special knowledge or practical experience in these fields. Which are these fields? Art, literature, science, social service. Once again, art, literature, science and social service. The rationale behind this principle of nomination is to provide eminent people a place in the Rajya Sabha without going through the process of election. We know that the process of election is very tedious and it is very exhausting process. And these people who are experts in their own respective field, they might not be interested in going through this process. But we do not want to give up on their experience and their knowledge. We should use their knowledge and their expertise in making laws. So in order to make that expertise available in the process of law making, we are having this system of nominated members, and 12 members are nominated. Then the next thing that you need to note here is that American Senate has no nominated members. We have seen that there are considerable difference between Indian and American system. What was the first difference that we saw? The first difference was they follow presidential form of government, whereas India follows parliamentary form of government. Then we saw that they do not have any seat reservation on the basis of population. We have seen that there are 100 seats and those 100 seats are equally divided among the 50 states. That is, each state will get 2 seats. But that is not the case in India. In India, the seat is as per the population. Then the third difference that we saw was they do not have any nominated members, whereas we have this concept of nominated members in the Rajya Sabha. We have it in Lok Sabha also. We will discuss that later. Next, composition of Lok Sabha. The maximum strength of Lok Sabha is fixed at 552. Again, this is the maximum strength. It is not necessary that we need to fill all these seats. This is the maximum limit. You cannot go beyond this limit, but lesser than this is acceptable. And how is this 552 divided? 530 can come from states, 20 from union territories, and 2 members, they are nominated from the Anglo-Indian community. So these are the maximum limits in each case: states, union territories and nomination. At present, Lok Sabha has got 545 members, that is 7 seats are not filled. And out of this 545, 524 is coming from the state, 19 from union territories and 2 are nominated by the president. So here we have not filled 6 seats, here 1 seat. So 7 seats are not filled. Representation of states. The representatives of states in the Lok Sabha are directly elected by the people themselves from the territorial constituencies in the states. Now what are these constituencies? A state is divided into different regions, and each region which has been divided for the purpose of election is called as territorial constituency. So direct election by the people from the territorial constituencies. The election is based on the principle of universal adult franchise. What is the meaning of universal adult franchise? That means every Indian citizen who is above 18 years of age and who is not disqualified under the provision of Constitution or any other law is eligible to vote at such election. Now there are situations where some people are barred from taking part in the process of election. They are not allowed to vote. So no such disqualification should be imposed on that person, and if he is an Indian citizen and more than 18 years of age, he can come and vote. So that is the meaning of principle of universal adult franchise. The voting age was reduced from 21 to 18 years by the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act 1988. Very important. The voting age was reduced from 21 to 18 years by the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act of 1988. So the important thing that you need to take from this slide is this Constitutional Amendment Act and the year. Next is representation of union territories in the Lok Sabha. The Constitution has empowered the Parliament to prescribe the manner of choosing the representatives of union territory in the Lok Sabha. That means it is not written in the Constitution. Instead, the Constitution has given that power to the Parliament, and Parliament can decide how these union territories will be represented in the Lok Sabha. And accordingly, the Parliament has enacted the Union Territories Direct Election to the House of the People Act 1965. And as per this act, the Parliament has decided that the members of Lok Sabha who will come from Union Territories are also to be chosen by direct election. So the people coming from states to the Lok Sabha, they are also elected directly by the people, but that is mentioned in the Constitution. Whereas in the case of union territories, the procedure is same. They are also elected directly by the people, but it was not written in the Constitution. Instead, the Constitution gave that power to the Parliament, and Parliament has decided that we will follow the same procedure which is followed in the case of states. And when was this enacted? The Union Territories Direct Election to the House of People Act 1965. Remember this date, 1965. Now when you see this date 1965, you are supposed to have few doubts in your mind. What should be those doubts? Didn't we have election before this? Yes, we had elections before this. Or didn't we have union territories before this? Yes, union territories existed even before 1965, and I will give you some important pieces of information. First thing, union territories were formed from 1956 onwards. When was this act enacted? It was 1965. And we had union territories since 1956 onwards, and that came into existence because of the States Reorganization Act of 1956. So this is the first thing. Second, did we have all the 8 union territories that we have right now in 1956? No. Out of the 8 that we have right now, we had only 3 union territories in 1956. One is Delhi, second Lakshadweep, third Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And we already know that even today Lakshadweep and Andaman and Nicobar Islands, they do not have any representation. Why? What is the reason? Because the population is very small even today. So we can imagine the scenario in 1956, the population would be extremely less. So that is the reason these 2 union territories never had any sort of representation. Now coming back to this, so we are done with states, we are done with union territories. Now third is nominated members to the Lok Sabha. The president can nominate 2 members from the Anglo-Indian community if the community is not adequately represented in the Lok Sabha. If they have got representation in the Lok Sabha, then we need not give this nomination to these members. Originally, that is when this constitution was framed, it was decided that this provision of nominated members, it will exist only till 1960. But this kept on getting extended. Now here I have collated all the facts which are based on numbers, because these sort of things it is difficult to remember. So part 5, Parliament, then Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, these 2 names were adopted in 1954. Fourth schedule, it deals with allocation of seats in the Rajya Sabha. Voting age was reduced from 21 to 18 years by the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act 1988. Then the Parliament decided that the members of Lok Sabha from the Union territories will come by means of direct election. And this was done on the basis of this act, which was Union Territories Direct Election to the House of People Act, enacted in 1965. So revise all these facts. These are important from this chapter. So that's all from my side for this video. I'll be coming back with the next video very soon. Thank you so much.